Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. The meeting of our March 18th meeting is now in order. So at this time, I'll go ahead and have the invocation. So now I'll go ahead and have the invocation, then we will have pledge allegiance and the roll call. So let's bow our heads. Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for each member on this board and each employee that represents the DOT. We ask your guidance today as we conduct the business of the Department of Transportation, and may we do it in an attitude to be pleasing to you and the right spirit. And Lord, we just ask now that you would be with and keep us safe today, and may this meeting be a meeting that is pleasing to you in how we act and conduct business. And now, Lord, we ask, guide us through this day, for we ask in your name, keep us safe. Amen. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I would like to also, before we have the roll call, I'd like to recognize Mr. Brown for his another term on the board, a re-election, and also Mr. Jeff Lewis, who's also been re-elected to serve on our board. And so congratulations, and look forward to working with you again the next few years. At this time now, we'll have a roll call.
Okay, District 1, Ms. Purcell.
Here.
District 2, Mr. Floyd.
Here.
District 3, Mr. Carricker.
Here.
District 4, Mr. Brown.
Here.
District 5, Ms. Key. District 6, Mr. Abel. District 7, Mr. Bowen.
Here.
District 8, Mr. Golden.
Here.
District 9, Ms. Dunn.
Here.
District 10, Mr. Boswell.
Here.
District 11, Mr. Lewis.
Here.
District 13, Ms. Lemon.
Here.
And District 14, Mr. Sharon.
Here.
If there's not any questions, at this time we'll approve the minutes of the previous meeting, February meeting. I need a motion.
I make a motion.
Have a second. We have a second. Is there any questions? If not, all by approval saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you. Ayes have it. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Albert Shelby to come forward, please, to give us a report on the program delivery.
So good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Commissioner, members of the board. I'm here to present the projects the department is proposing to advertise for the April 2021 letting. Before we present April, here are the FY 2021 results. We have let a total of 272 projects in FY 2021. This chart shows the number of projects by improvement type. The value of these 272 projects is approximately $1.062 billion through the February 2021 bid awards, with 254 GDOT let projects worth approximately $1.022 billion and 18 local let projects worth $40 million. This chart shows the dollar amount distribution by improvement type, with maintenance, bridge, and road projects making up the bulk of the improvement types. Here are the results of the February 2021 letting. Of the 43 GDOT let contracts presented to the board, all were awarded from the letting. You may recall from last month's presentation that there were 2 projects that were withdrawn from the January 2021 letting and advertised again in the February 2021 letting. These projects were the 4th and 5th phases of the I-16 and I-75 interchange reconstruction, and both of them have been awarded. These 2 projects account for the additional projects actually awarded in February, as shown on this table. Now I'm going to discuss the projects in the April 2021 letting. We have a total of 26 projects with 25 GDOT let and 1 local let project. The next 3 slides list the 26 non-TIA projects arranged by congressional district. So as you can see with this slide, we are letting a variety of projects throughout the state to address bridge capacity, enhancement, maintenance, and safety issues. The first highlighted project is the replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on Talent Store Road over Little Muckalee Creek in Sumter County. The existing bridge was constructed in 1959, 62 years ago. Here's a ground view of that bridge to be replaced. The next highlighted project is the replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on Frontage Road over Yellow River in Newton County. The existing bridge was constructed in 1937, 84 years ago. And here's a ground view of that bridge to be replaced. The next project will widen the existing State Route 5 in Fannin County, beginning at Wash-Wilson Road and extending approximately 1.52 miles north near the intersection of Old Flowers Road. State Route 5 will be widened from 2 to 4 lanes with a 14-foot center turn lane. The project would transition back to 2 12-foot lanes at Old Flowers Road. The next highlighted project is the replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on State Route 10 over Sweetwater Creek in McDuffie County. The existing bridge was constructed in 1931, 90 years ago. And here's a ground view of that bridge to be replaced. Yes, sir.
You get ready to replace it. Is the foundation the piece that you're mostly concerned about when you're replacing it when it's been over about 90 years?
It depends on which structure we're talking about from the state. From this perspective, it's both the substructure and the superstructure that need to come out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This next project will widen and reconstruct State Route 4, which is also US 1, from Clarks Mill Road, which is also Louisville Bypass, to Mennonite Church Road in Jefferson County from a 2 to a 4-lane facility. The total project length is 5.8 miles. This project is part of the Governor's Road Improvement Program, known as GRIP. It will provide additional capacity and support economic development. This next project, located in Jasper County, will resurface State Route 83 from the Monroe County line to State Route 16 for a distance of 13.71 miles. This section was last repaved in 2003, 18 years ago, and is an excellent example of our continued commitment to maintaining our existing infrastructure. This next project is a replacement of the structurally deficient bridge on State Route 201 over Tanyard Creek. The existing culvert crossing was constructed in 1942, 79 years ago. This project is funded with state bond funds. And here's a ground view of those culverts to be replaced. The final project will resurface State Route 157, which is also State Route 189, from State Route 136 to the Tennessee state line for a distance of 15.65 miles. This section was last repaved in 2012, 9 years ago, and is an excellent example of our commitment to maintain our existing infrastructure. So we have 26 projects proposed for the April 2021 letting. This chart shows the distribution by improvement types. The estimate of these projects in the April 2021 letting is approximately $101 million. This chart shows the dollar amount distribution by improvement type. I now ask for your consideration for approval for the proposed projects presented for the April 2021 letting.
Is there any questions from Mr. Shelby? If not, we'll entertain a motion for approval. We
So
have a
moved.
motion and a second. If any other questions, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Okay. All opposed? Not here, none, so ayes have it, motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Shelby, for that great report.
Thank you.
This time now, I'll ask our commissioner, Mr. Russell McMurray, to come forward to give us our commissioner's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's a pleasure to be
Morning.
with you. I'd like to walk through, as always, start with our state fund collections and give you an update of what we're seeing in revenue. The total from February 2021, revenues were $168.6 million. The breakdown on that was $153.9 million in excise, $14.6 million in transportation fees. So as I always like to do is give you a little comparison to year ago, same date. Excise for February was down 0.5% as compared to February last year. So for all practical purposes, about the same. The hotel fees were down about 21.7% as to be expected, as compared to last February. And as we remember, in February, we were pre-pandemic situation. So that's actually, to me, a little bit of a good indicator that only a 22% difference as compared to last year. Impact fees, which are the alternative vehicle fees, heavy vehicle fees, are actually up 13% this year as compared to last year. So that brings our fiscal year to date to collections to $1.33 billion, excise being $1.24 billion, and $98 million in fees. Year to date, that brings excise to being 0.2% above where we were last year this time. Fees being down about 24% as compared to last year this time, as to be expected. So now let me move into our employment data, which closed out at end of February, 3,603 regular full-time staff. We have 38 temporary maintenance staff on board. We hired 28 employees, promoted 50 employees, and had 56 separations. Moving into our procurement report, the monthly activity for February was very busy. Again, 182 contracts valued at $41.5 million for engineering design, right-of-way, geotechnical, and other professional services were awarded. That brings our fiscal year-to-date contracts to advanced projects to 1,125, totaling $417.7 million. So a tremendous amount of work still to keep projects moving forward despite these times. So congratulations to all our folks to make that happen. All right, so since we were together last, I'd like to highlight projects that have opened to traffic, and we'll start in Congressional District 1 in Camden County, which is, of course, GDOT District 5, and this is really a safety and operation improvement, which it consists of installing lighting at the interchange at I-95 and St. Mary's Road. That's exit 1 for all of us that travel up and down I-95. We've had a lot of work there to do vegetation management, then replanting of the interchange, and now adding lighting to this important interchange, being the first exit into Georgia, which also serves the Welcome Center. High mast lighting was added to the existing interchange, which obviously improves visibility, but also safety and operations for this important interchange. The contractor was Williams Power and Signal, It represents a $2.9 million investment, and the project was completed ahead of schedule. The next project for update that was open to traffic since last month was in Congressional District 8 in Colquitt County, which is GDOT District 4. And this is an operational and improvement project as well as a safety improvement, which consists of a roundabout at State Route 37 and Industrial Drive / Cool Springs Road. You can see a before and after on your screen. A very busy area there. You can see the tractor trailers in the photo, in fact. Project was open to traffic on February 1st. It represents a $4.1 million investment, and this project was also ahead of schedule. Now moving into two congressional districts, both Congressional District 2 and 8 in Bibb and Monroe counties. This is a capital maintenance investment of over 15 miles of milling, inlay, and plant resurfacing on Interstate 475. The contractor is C.W. Matthews Contracting Company. Finished up on February 6th. It represents a $20.7 million capital maintenance investment. And if you've had the opportunity to ride on that corridor, it is much better than it used to be. So it's a great improvement there in Macon, or around Macon. This project was completed on schedule. The next project represents a bridge replacement in Chattooga County, which is Congressional District 14, also GDOT District 6. And this project is a bridge replacement on State Route 48 over the East Fork Little River. It's about 3.7 miles northeast of Menlo, Georgia. The contractor was Wright Brothers Construction, replacing another bridge that was built in 1937. So we've talked about a few vintage bridges today that were built in the 30s. So again, doing these capital replacements is critical for our freight mobility. This project opened up first part of February 2nd. It represents a total investment of $10 million, but it also included $7.6 million of the bridge bond funds that we had previously received from the legislature. So a great example of how these bond dollars are being deployed to replace critical bridges. This project was open to traffic ahead of schedule. So that completes the projects that opened to traffic. Again, trying to be a little bit brief with these. Now let me move into some updates of things happening here in the department. And the first thing I'd highlight is, there's the bridge. I'm sorry, I didn't click ahead. So there's the bridge replacement on State Route 48. And Mr. Bowen, you've already stole my thunder a little bit. Congratulations to Mr. Brown of the 4th and Mr. Lewis of the 11th for being re-elected with no opposition, I might add. And it was unanimous. So it was good that it was unanimous when you had no opposition. So congratulations. Their board elections were both on February 24th. Congratulations for another 5-year term. We definitely appreciate your leadership, Mr. Brown and Mr. Lewis, for what you've done in your past. But look forward to another 5 years of moving Georgia forward with you. And as a reminder, and Mr. Bowen, you mentioned this too, it's great to have Russ Carricker on the phone with us today from Congressional District 3, and welcome him to the board as well. Now, continuing in the news of personnel information and updates, I'm proud to announce our 2 new district engineers. As you all would agree, district engineers are a critical role and position with this department that have such importance to not only to you as the board, but to each of our districts. And I'm very excited to announce the 2 district engineers that have been announced in GDOT District 3. We'll go in district order. Mr. Tyler Peak has been named district engineer. As most of you know, Tyler served recently as the district traffic engineer in District 3, Thomaston. But what you may not know is a little bit about his career, so let me share that. He began his career as a transportation engineer associate in the District 3 design office back in May of 2007 and progressed through the role to be a design engineer. Tyler then served as a project manager in the Office of Program Delivery until March 2013. He then served as an assistant District 3 utilities engineer and later was then moved into the district traffic operations manager role in District 3. So he's had a diverse experience and background there, especially in District 3, but also around the state in program delivery. Tyler is a Georgia Tech graduate, a registered professional engineer. He's also completed the department's management development program. So congratulations to Tyler. And also I'm super proud to announce the District 7 Metro Atlanta District Engineer, Paul Denard. Paul, as you know, most recently served as the district pre-construction engineer for District 7, along with being the assistant district engineer. And that was, and since January, he's been serving in the interim role as district engineer. He began his career with the department also in 2007, back in July of 2007, as a transportation engineer associate in the Office of Traffic Operations. Paul served as a traffic design engineer, traffic design supervisor, state traffic operations manager, all in the traffic operations office. In 2015, Paul moved into the chief engineer's office to serve as the executive assistant to the chief engineer. He then transferred to a position in the District 7 as district traffic engineer, and in 2016 moved into the district district pre-construction engineer role. So again, a wealth of experience that Paul brings to the table. Paul is a graduate from North Carolina State University and also a registered PE, and Paul also has his professional traffic operations engineer licensure. Paul has also completed the department's management development program and also the department's succession planning program. So congratulations to both Tyler and Paul. We expect great things out of them, so please call upon them when you need to. And it's always important to us to highlight the great accomplishments of our staff, and there's nothing finer than when a professional organization outside of the department recognizes our staff. I'm pleased to announce that our GDOT State Materials Engineer, Ms. Monica Flournoy, recently received the 2021 Special Recognition for Excellence in Full-Depth Reclamation from the ARRA, that is, the Asphalt Recycling and Reclaiming Association. So let me tell you about what this award's about. Each year, the ARRA honors public officials and consultant engineers who have made outstanding contributions to the asphalt recycling and reclaiming industry. Monica was nominated for this recognition by the Southeast Cement Promotion Association, which is part of the National Concrete Paving Association. This nomination may seem a little counterintuitive since we're talking about asphalt recycling and reclamation, but that process is where asphalt is basically ground up and mixed with cement into the base for pavements to be put on top, usually asphalt. So quite an honor, again, from the industry to recognize Monica's contributions and to be awarded this 2021 special recognition. So super excited for Monica and her team at the Office of Materials and Research. Now, moving into a little bit of update, as I have pretty consistently through the pandemic, to try to give you some traffic update information that really sort of shows the signs of recovery, if you will, and how the economy may be doing. So we've been sharing our data that we've seen, but now we have some more data to share from NREX. And NREX basically produces a global traffic report card every year, and you can Google that. They do a tremendous job in ranking congestion, basically, if you will, across the entire world. And so, as we all know, we've seen the effects of less congestion and increased travel speeds due to COVID-19. But let me just tell you a little bit about what the NREX Global Report Card had to say. As you know, traffic is largely rebounded in Georgia, and it's a strong indicator of our economic activity. But there's many trends we can find interesting in this report, and I'll share a few with those. In the United States, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Boston retained their rankings among the top 4 most congested cities. Atlanta, on the other hand, we slipped from 10th to 22nd on the report. And that would be nice if that was all because of infrastructure improvements, but we know it was due to the pandemic. We are still behind other cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami, and Washington, D.C. In Atlanta, overall in 2020, the daily vehicle miles traveled, a measure of how much travel happens on a daily basis, dropped over 13%, or about 13%. 6 of the top 7 cities were just sort of reshuffled, except D.C. It held its own ranking. But this chart may be a little bit hard to see, but you can see things shifted significantly. A good example here is for comparison. I like to compare it to Philadelphia, which is ranked number 2. Philly and Atlanta are about the same size for metro areas. Philly's ranked 8th. We're ranked 9th on, from census data. But you can see that Philly's traffic is still worse than ours. Some information about traffic. The Atlanta hours lost to congestion in 2019 was about 228 hours of people individually lost their time due to congestion. In 2020, that number dropped to only 20 hours. So that's a pretty big difference. NREX comes up with the cost of congestion is $299.97 per hour. So think about that when we previously had over 220 hours of congestion. Also, sort of a comparison from 2019, when the worst of the worst speeds across the Metro Atlanta, all across Metro Atlanta was about 27 miles an hour. In 2020, that speed was 41 miles an hour, so a big difference in speeds. And we've seen that, but it's always good to have affirmation. NREX does a really good job. We're always eager to read this report and look at it. It helps us understand and show how we can continue to make improvements along our corridors. And I might remind you that in 2019, we actually moved down the list, and we don't want to be on the top of this list. We moved down the list, and part of that was the significance of the Northwest Corridor, which really made it improve travel time on that very busy I-75 and 575 corridor. So speaking about traffic and information, we always do our part to try to update the public and the media of upcoming work, and I'm very proud to share this with you. I'm sorry, there's a couple of clicks I failed to mention. Google this if you want to take a deeper dive. It's really easy to look at and to use. But I'm excited to update you on how we're now reporting our weekend construction activities, which is originally set up for Atlanta Metro years ago, very long time ago. We've created this website now. Our folks in communications and our IT team have really created an enhancement that really has created an interactive web page. You can see scrolling there for what's to be expected really Thursday through Sunday and mainly Metro Atlanta right now. Our communications team worked with our news media outlets to say, what is it that you'd like to see? And as you can see scrolling, it's a lot easier to find locations. What we used to provide was basically a spreadsheet that was clunky to use, you had to read every line to figure out what was going on. So we've really improved this process, very easily to read and consume. There's opportunities to filter and sort and look for information as you want. So we refresh this on a weekly basis, again, sort of forecasting Thursday through Sunday, planned construction activities or impacts on the roadways. And also we link this to 511 where you can actually get the real-time traffic information that you need. And our goal is to scale this across the other districts as well, that they can use it as they have major traffic impacts. So again, very proud of the team for always focusing on how to make things better. And this certainly is a great enhancement from that. So as we continue to try to notify people of the work, we always plan for work, and we continue to work with folks in different ways to inform them of upcoming work. And I just wanted to highlight another major freight improvement and travel improvement in Northeast Georgia, and that's our virtual public information open house we held on I-85 of what we're calling Phase 3. That is the continuation of adding a general purpose lane, which would make I-85 6 lanes from US 129 in Jackson County, which is the Jefferson exit, up to US 441 in Banks County, which is the Commerce exit. So as part of MMIP, we've advanced now projects all the way up to the Jefferson exit. And so now this is the next phase that gets us up to Commerce. Again, very focused on freight efficiency and freight and logistics movement. And as many of you know, this is certainly a big warehouse distribution area of the state. So glad to have this project out. Doing things virtually on projects like this has been a real success. Interstate widening projects like this are very hard to do in person because they're so long. So this has been great to have this opportunity. We've had over 1,000 page views, got 40 public comments, which are being reviewed. Again, this project is a design-build project scheduled to be let in June of this year, and with construction beginning in probably 2022 and completion late 23 or 24. So just wanted to keep this on your radar, but again, how virtual public meetings are actually more of a benefit than they probably would have been in person. So, you know, using technology to keep people informed is a theme of this board meeting. So let me move to our next item, of which I wanted to inform you of how we're using ITS equipment or technology to improve messaging to the people and the citizens that travel in and around Millen, Georgia. Millen's a town of about 3,000 people located in east central Georgia, which is in Congressional District 12, GDOT District 2. It's the county seat of Jenkins County. While Millen is sort of a rural area, it is an extremely busy freight hub serving as switching station for hundreds of Norfolk Southern trains moving from Atlanta to Savannah, but also from Augusta, Columbia, over to Atlanta or down to Savannah. In the city, there's actually something called a Y. It's where the trains can sort of, instead of one direction, they can go in three directions. So it's an extremely busy location. As we know this year, as part of the pandemic, we've seen a lot more freight growth, and we know from our rail partners that something called precision railroading is relating to or causing more trains and longer trains, some up to 3 miles long. What this has resulted for Millen is blocked crossings. Millen only has one railroad overpass, which is a city street right by their school system. So in a more of a residential neighborhood. So if the train's blocking up all the crossings of the state routes and other city crossings, everybody diverts to in front of the schools, which is not good, especially for freight traffic. So I'm very proud of our District 2 team and our traffic operations folks for finding solutions to how to improve this situation. And so GDOT's collaborated with Norfolk Southern and the mayor, King Rocker of Millen, and to really try to figure out how could we inform people to make better decisions so that they don't drive all the way into town and then get blocked by a train. So we are incorporating the ITS equipment, which is the changeable message signs like you see out on the freeways, and detection cameras that are focused on the rail crossings so that when a train is blocking a crossing, in advance of that area, a driver will get a notice that that road is blocked due to a train, and then they can take an alternate route. And on this map, you can see some of the locations of where those signage would be. And also on this map, you can see the Y, which is sort of the black and white skip line, sort of in the middle of town. That is actually the rail. So as you can see, there's lots of opportunities to block the east and west movement in Millen. So super excited about how this is moving forward, and equipment began to be installed last week, and then we'll finish up this summer with the rest of the equipment. So we're getting underway with at the bottom of the screen now, which is probably the easiest detour, and we'll be moving forward very soon. So again, very proud of the staff to think innovatively outside of the box. How can we solve this? Give people information so they just don't get stuck. All right, so let me move away from that and end with something that I'm super proud of, and that's after a full year of a pandemic now, GDOT has played many critical roles for helping GEMA and Homeland Security in the COVID response. And now as we move into a new phase, which is mass vaccinations, GDOT is again right there helping on the front lines, and just want to make sure you're aware of this. So in February, GEMA Homeland Security reached out to State Maintenance Office and needed assistance as the state stood up the mass vaccination sites. And of course, we were able to oblige and help for this critical state effort. Basically, we turned around a lot of signs and information within a week, and so many of our staff have worked long hours, even nights and weekends of getting these mass vaccination sites set up. So if you go through one of those and see the barrels, the cones, the signs, the message boards, the lights, that's all our handiwork. And so what we've done is provide all those kind of things. And a little bit of rundown of some specific tasks, just for your information, is our Office of Equipment Management moved a lot of equipment, things like generators, mobile trailers and helped get the vaccination site set up. Districts have performed so much work, including moving water, the things you wouldn't think about, moving water, moving the freezers for the vaccines, grading. We even did some paving up in Habersham County to make sure that cars could ingress and egress nicely. Put in some crosswalks as well, provided the light tower, so that there's light, and also, again, barricades, cones, drums, like you can see in the slide. So tremendous amount of work. Here are those mass vaccination sites we have helped with. We're currently working with GEMA to expand the Delta Flight Museum location here in Metro Atlanta. There are approximately 12,000 shots a day and now ramped up to 3,000 shots a day at that location. So I remember the governor talking about how this works and how you can easily replicate it and make it larger, and that's exactly what we're doing. So congratulations again, and I want to just again express my profound and sincere thanks to all the folks that have been helping in this effort to make Georgia a better place through these vaccinations. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. I'll be glad to entertain any questions or comments.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that fine report. Is there any questions from the Commissioner at this time?
Mr. Chairman, this is Dana Lemon. I have a comment more so than a question. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead, Ms. Lemon.
Okay. Commissioner, thank you for sharing that information about the vaccine sites. I was actually at the site in Macon on yesterday, and I saw the GDOT trucks, and I was so confused. I'm like, what are we doing here? And so I'm glad to hear that we are actually supporting the work that's being done at these mass sites, because it is so critical. One, to get people in and out and make people feel safe about the whole process. So thank you, and please thank our staff for what they're doing to help in this pandemic and with the vaccines and everything like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon, for those comments. Any other question? Any comments? Thank you, Commissioner, for that fine report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
At this time now, we'll have our legislative update report. I'm going to ask Mr. Josh Waller to come forward, the Director of Policy and Government Affairs.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, Mr. Brown, Mr. Floyd, the full board, Commissioner. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this update, and we'll jump right into it. First, starting off with the state. You can see the legislative calendar. We're on day 35, so we're counting. We're in the short rows, but sometimes it's even though it's only a week and a half, it's going to probably be a long week and a half. And like they say, it's always darkest before the dawn. So we'll just keep moving forward. So so today's day 35. Next week we would anticipate seeing some movement. I won't steal the treasurer's thunder. We'll expect some movement from the Senate on the FY22 budget, and then a conference activity, getting them to, usually they pass the budget here recently. They've done that on day 39. So we may see some action of them negotiating over the next weekend, or that following weekend before the 29th. And then sine dies that Wednesday, the 31st, and then April Fool's Day is the next day. I guess we'll see what all's passed. Crossover legislation, I'm going to highlight. It's actually pretty easy to remember. The House bill is done with transportation. It's 511, 577, and 588. So this is easier to remember. So I'll start with 511. That is the House bill that follows on the constitutional amendment that was adopted last year that allows the state to use a constitutional process to dedicate funds. So what 511 does is it takes all the fees, the transportation fees are included, those that were adopted as part of House Bill 170, as well as the rideshare fees. And it uses this constitutional mechanism to dedicate them to trust funds for the purposes as they are today in terms of roads and bridges and that percent usage that's allowed for transit. And then obviously for the rideshare fees, those are exclusively dedicated to transit use. So it will keep those requirements. It makes it more mechanical. It makes it more just part of the process for it to be dedicated. That's passed the House. It's passed in the committee. It's actually on the agenda in the Senate today for passage. If it passes in the Senate today, there were no changes made in the Senate, so it will go straight to the governor. House Bill 577 is the housekeeping bill, the department's annual cleanup bill. That's in Senate Transportation. We're expecting that to get a hearing next week. There may be some slight tweaks to it, but pretty much everything to it will be, is what the board's approved. And just making sure that we've got all the cleanup we need in terms of the statute, for this year. So we expect that next week. And then House Bill 588 was the legislation that was sort of the follow-on to the last Freight and Logistics Commission, Study Commission. So we're expecting that to continue to develop and ensure that all the things that they identified from, what are some low-hanging fruit in terms of dedicated funding, in terms of the sales tax on locomotive diesel fuel, to making sure that the state has the appropriate GDOT, CERTA, and others have the appropriate statutory framework to be able to let kind of P3 multimodal projects, or to ensure that P3 projects can include multimodal, intermodal projects. So we'll expect, a little bit more work on that. It's in the Senate Finance Committee, but we'll expect that to come up next week. Beyond that, we also have Senate Resolution 84, which is passed the Senate, crossed over. It passed out of House Transportation yesterday. It's a study committee looking at airport infrastructure. So we'll expect, if that's adopted by the House, that over the course of this year, there'll be some meetings throughout the state looking at our airports and trying to identify ways to expand investment and what are those needs. As well as Senate Resolution 102, which is a follow-up to the Freight and Logistics. It will extend another commission to look at freight and logistics with a heavy focus on the e-commerce component and the impact that we've seen over the last year with just the growth in e-commerce, the demand that's probably not going to go away now post-pandemic of just picking up your phone and ordering it. So looking at all that, and then obviously just what are the investments, and then what might be some of the other ways to generate revenue. In terms of legislation that didn't cross over that's important to us, there's bills in both the House and the Senate that would have raised truck weights for logging trucks. Neither of those crossed over. I think the message about and the concerns about that have resonated. We do expect that the House and Senate Transportation Committees are going to probably stand up some kind of a special subcommittee to look at it and just really vet it through. But we're going to continue to remain steadfast in our concerns about its impact on bridges if we were to raise those truck weights. There had been some discussion, and there is a bill that passed out of the House and it's in the Senate dealing with limiting the fees that local governments can charge for right-of-ways to utilities. There had been discussion about pulling the department into that process. Thus far, we've been able to make clear that that's something that this department is taking up. This board has been actively reviewing that. And so to this point, it's still, we're not included in any of that legislation. Let's see. All right, with that, I think that's go over to the federal update. Talk about the FY21 reconciliation, COVID relief, and then kind of what we're looking forward to in terms of the next infrastructure bill. So as most of you have seen, the Congress enacted and the President signed into law HR 1319, which was the FY21 Reconciliation Act, American Rescue Plan, about $2 trillion. Within that, it includes $30.5 billion for transit operations and related costs and $8 billion for airport operations and related costs. So that goes back just to the impact of reduced ridership, less folks flying, to make sure that they don't have to lay people off and they're able to maintain or address their operating costs. I think we're still waiting on guidance in terms of how that's going to be broken out among the states, but that usually is going to come down in sort of a formulaic, from a formula approach. The airport money, obviously, what comes to Georgia, a huge portion of that will probably go to Hartsville-Jackson, as it has in the past. This bill, if you recall, and I think when you hear the Treasurer's presentation, you'll see some more details on this, but the bill that passed last year included funding, relief funding that came directly to the DOTs through our formula. This bill didn't include any of that. And like I said, the Treasurer will address how we're going to reflect those funds from the last bill in this budget. In terms of there's also a few other pots where they mention in this bill that it could be used for infrastructure. Again, it doesn't come to the states, or it doesn't come to DOT, but it'll be handled at sort of the state level. And so we're still waiting on details for that and what that could include. Looking forward, there's been a lot of talk about, using the same process, and let me just underscore, the term that there's reconciliation, long and short of it, reconciliation at the federal level is a process whereby they can do once every fiscal year, that they're able to pass bills. The big piece about this is they're able to pass a bill with only 51 votes in the Senate. All legislation in the U.S. Senate requires 60 votes to end the debate and then proceed to a vote. This is sort of the one shot a year to pass something that doesn't require that. So I say that because they're also looking at using the FY22 reconciliation process to pass an infrastructure bill, perhaps. Because if they find that they don't think they'll be able to get bipartisan support, the majorities in the House and Senate would use that process again. So we're going to continue to monitor that and see if that's going to be the course, what they might do. There's been a lot of talk. The administration has identified perhaps some tax code changes and kind of increasing in maybe the corporate tax rate and some other rates to pay for an infrastructure bill. So we'll keep an eye on that and see sort of what the underlying policy is. Additionally, one other thing to flag, if you may have already received some of these requests, the Congress is looking at reintroducing the earmarking process, and that's where in the annual appropriations bill, as well as the authorization bill, the members of Congress identify projects and they usually some amount to them. In reintroducing that process, I think the House is looking at it and has already spelled out the process. The Senate's still trying to evaluate it. But they want to make sure, especially on the transportation side, that if any projects that they would look at would be included in one of the federal, either the STIP or one of the MPO TIPs, to ensure that if it gets federal funding, it's already federally eligible, as well as looking at the issue of very rarely do these earmarks ever provide the full cost of the project. So identifying what are those other sources. Because the last time we had earmarks, it's been a little bit over a decade or around a decade. A lot of times we'd have earmarks that $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 on a multi-million-dollar project for which the other funds hadn't been identified. So I think they're trying to avoid some of the pitfalls of the past. But certainly we stand ready if we get any questions from the delegation, or if you do, to help work through that process and provide whatever information is needed. And with that, concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Josh. Is there any questions for Josh from the board?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your report. Thank you. At this time, our treasurer, Ms. Angela Whitworth, will come forward to give a report on the updated budget.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman, member of the board. I'm here today to present the FY22 budget recommendations. Thus far, I was hoping that the Senate would have passed their recommendations out this week, but they have not. They're looking at potentially passing those out of committee next week. So in this recommendation, what you'll see reflected here is the changes thus far through the House. On this slide here, it shows we've been through this 2 or 3 times now. As you can see in the motor fuel estimate, the $216 million that we show coming in additional in excise, the department we've worked with, the Office of Planning and Budget and the state economist to come up with the projections, and they look like they're coming in on target. So with the additional $216 million, there'll be an additional $1.9 billion added in excise motor fuel. You'll see down below it the $27 million, that's the non-excise component. Will bring it the total to $137 million. I want to highlight the 2 items underneath that. The ATL, y'all see the $12 million coming into our budget. I'll highlight that a little later on in our in this overview, and then you'll see that in the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, Greta, $330,000, which gets directly appropriated to fund their budget, for the total budget recommendation of a little bit over $2 billion. Almost $2.1 billion. On this slide, you'll see my typical chart that breaks down the bulk of the budget recommendation. You can see here in the capital projects budget, there's $962 million, which is made up of capital construction, capital maintenance, and local roads admin. Next to that is general operation, which makes up $232 million. This consists of 5 programs. construction administration, departmental administration, data collections, planning, and traffic management. Next to that is LMIG, which makes up 10% of our excise. That's through formula distribution to the cities and the counties. Our second biggest allotment is for routine maintenance, which makes up 21% of our budget. That $430 million helps restore most of all the funding that was reduced in 21. Payments to CERTA, you'll see it to be $88 million. This is due primarily to the decrease in the GRVs and GARVs and the elimination of the 10 for 10. In intermodal, you'll see it makes up roughly 1%, which is $29 million. In the GEO bond debt service, you'll see $145 million through the combination of the motor fuel and the fee component. And then lastly, you'll see the new program that is administratively attached to us, which is the ATL, which is $12.8 million. And y'all may recall that on the previous slide. In this slide here, I just really wanted to reflect what the changes were from the governor's recommendation to the House version currently at this time. As you can see here in capital maintenance, I'll start with capital maintenance because you'll see a reduction of $67 million. Those funds are being reallocated to capital constructions and payments to CERTA, but they are being backfilled and supplanted with those COVID relief funds that Josh just mentioned to you. So those will be backfilled with those COVID relief funds. $58 million is going into capital construction to do several major widening projects, as well as they had $500,000 that was carved out for some road safety improvements. Down in payments to CERTA, you'll see the $8.9 million. What this helps to do is to restore the Transportation Infrastructure Bank. The additional $3.1 million would help restore the base. And then also you'll see additional $5.7 million to true up the GARVI debt service from the sale that we had in December. This trues up the debt service payment for 22. Down at the bottom in intermodal, you'll see additional $7.6 million. What that is the rideshare fee revenue from House Bill 105 coming into the department, along with an additional $50,000 for some security needs on the Ogeechee Railroad. All right. And this next slide, what this does is it shows from our original 21 base to where we currently are now through the House version. So in GEO bond debt service, you'll see the additional $15.2 million there in motor fuel to true up the motor fuel debt service portion. I'll highlight in capital maintenance, it's taking $21 million out of the base to go into capital construction, and those funds are being supplanted with those COVID relief dollars. Also in capital construction, I'll highlight again the two initiatives that were brought forth by Janine, the planning director. One was being focused on freight operations. This initiative will assist with improving road and bridge facilities that are heavily traversed by trucks for small-scale investments that can address safety and enhance efficiency in freight movement throughout the state. And then the second one is the Rural Development Initiative. This was deployed for transportation improvements unique to rural Georgia, specifically targeting roadway safety and broadband infrastructure for transportation-related telecommunication and innovative solutions. Also carved out in this, out of existing funds, was to utilize $500,000 in existing funds for road safety improvements. Next, I'll highlight construction admin and departmental admin. What this does, it helps us fill our ongoing vacancies in the department and helps with recruitment and retention, as well as I will highlight that the House has recommended a program name change for construction admin. They're proposing that we change the program name from construction admin to program delivery administration. Next, you'll see an increase in $21.6 million for the local maintenance improvement grant program. What that does, it trues up that 10% of excise for the program with the increased dollars. In routine maintenance, you'll see $35 million coming into the budget. That trues up the base. You saw that in the amended. What this does, it gives the department the ability to do additional ITBs throughout all the districts throughout the state. It helps with striping, herbicide, litter pickup. That's what those funds will be utilized for. And then lastly, on the motor fuel side of the house is the payments to CERTA with the reduction of $755,000, which was primarily due to truing up of the debt service between the GRBs and the GARVs. On this next slide here, it shows the proposal, which makes up for pretty much for fees and state general funds in this recommendation. You'll see $19.4 million of fees being utilized for the GM bond debt. So if you take that $19 million with this $125 million from the GO bond debt previously, that ties to the $145 million in debt service. In payments to CERTA, there was no change in that component for the fee component. In payments to the ATL, you see where this new program is coming into the budget, and it was created through previous legislation. Just like payments to CERTA in our budget now, you'll see payments to the ATL. And then in intermodal, that additional $7.6 million that I talked about of the rideshare fees from House Bill 105, predominantly $7.63 million of that is made up. $6 million of that will go to MARTA for the Bankhead station rehabilitation, and then $1 million of that will go toward the Athens Clark County transit facility, as well as $50,000 is being added for the Ogeechee Railroad for some fencing, I believe it is, in Sylvania. So that those are the current House recommendations thus far. Okay, and then finally, on the general obligation bond portion of our recommendation, there's $100 million that was recommended for the department. That's 12 bridge replacements in Evans, Webster, Fayette, Sumter, Spalding. There's 2 projects in Madison County, Macon, Chattooga, Elbert, Floyd, and Jefferson counties. And then there's 4 capital projects. There's one on State Route 9 in Forsyth. There's one on State Route 20 in Henry County. There is one on State Route 24, US 441 in Washington County. And then there's one on US 27 in Troup County. And then lastly, there is a short line rail request for $10 million that was included in the budget. That is for the Heart of Georgia Railroad and the Georgia Southwestern Railroad. There's a little bit over $7 million that is being allocated to the Hog Rail line for upgrades for bridges and track between Preston and Vidalia. And then the second one is on the Georgia Southwestern Railroad, which is almost $3 million in upgrades for bridges and track between Cuthbert and Lynn. Currently, we have 222 miles of GDOT-owned short line railroad that meet these FRA Class 2 standards, which is being able to carry 286,000 pounds and travel up to 25 miles per hour. There's 261 miles left to upgrade, and we have approximately 130 miles currently underway at this time. And with that, that is our current budget recommendation as it stands through the House. We eagerly await to see what the Senate has.
Okay. Board members, do you have any questions? Mr. Bowen had to excuse himself for the rest of the meeting. So, well, thank you, Ms. Whitworth.
Okay, thank you.
Now we'll call Janine Miller up for our STIP report.
Good morning. Hopefully everyone out there can hear me. It's great to see some board members here in the room today, and thank you for being here. I'll try to be brief, but this is probably one of our most public and important things that we do here at the department, which is determine and display how we're spending, investing taxpayer dollars through the STIP, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. So get started here. So as you probably know, this is GDOT's 4-year fiscally constrained program for transportation operations and capital improvement. It lists federally funded projects statewide. So if there's any federal dollars that are going toward projects, it has to be in the STIP. This is not a comprehensive list of all the projects that we do. As you know, House Bill 170 enables us to invest in projects without federal funds. Those are not included here, but you will see here in just a moment how important those federal dollars are. This is also balanced by congressional district, and of course this is a collaborative effort between the Division of Planning and the other offices throughout GDOT. in simplest terms, we've got a pie chart to display here that 37% of 3.85 billion out of 10.3 billion statewide is going to capacity improvements. But it's also vital that we maintain our system with safety, maintenance, bridge, and traffic operations. This $10.3 billion, should know, is inclusive of rural projects, that is non-metropolitan planning organizations, and MPO money. This is statewide federally matched dollars. So roughly 44% of the dollars are in non-metro areas. The rest of what's in this pie chart, that's a little over $5 billion, is in the MPO areas, and they have their own planning processes that we at the department support and engage with a lot of locally elected officials and through a federally designated planning process. So this is encompassing the entire state, not just we here at GDOT work on and invest in. Of this 10.3, 55% is federal, 28% is state money, and 18% is local. I think it's really important that we are not just doing this as a state government. This is not just state funds. There are local dollars in this, and we are always pleased and proud to partner with local governments who invest in their transportation network for our citizens and our economy and our visitors. It's also, I think, important to show how we are, for the first time, showing the alignment in this four-year plan with the long-range statewide strategic transportation plan that you all adopted last month. That is the long range through 2050. This is not intended to be a mirror image. That SSTP is average annual investment levels over a long-range period. This is the specific projects we're investing in over the 4 years, and we're pretty well aligned. You can see the percentage columns there on bridge capacity, maintenance. Where we are working with our safety and traffic operations, though, is to improve our ability to have smart and effective investments in roadway safety and traffic operations. And you're going to hear some pretty fun stuff from Andrew Heath here after I'm done speaking, and we're looking to continue to support that important work. And throughout the process that has been underway for over a year, and probably more like a year and a half or maybe even longer, we've been working with the rural local elected officials through consultation. Incredible thanks to the district offices for all of their work in engaging with their local officials, elected and staff, to make sure these are the right projects. They're ready to go. Their local dollars are ready to come to the table when applicable. Of course, we had great meetings with board members, and thank you for your time and your engagement, and GDOT management certainly throughout the department. We worked, of course, with the Chief Engineer's Office, Intermodal, Office of Environmental Services, Right-of-Way, the TIA office, district offices, but I want to give really big thanks to the Office of Financial Management, particularly Andy Robinson and Tiana Staples, OPD, Albert Shelby, and Communications, Natalie Dale. There's a video that she's done for us, and I'll show you a little photo of that, which very, very thankful for that. Ron Battle, of course, IT GIS office, Teague Buchanan. Really, this is a whole of GDOT effort to get to the STIP as well. As the governor's office, we've reviewed this with USDOT, and the general public is right now, we're in the middle of public comment period. So that is our own little March Madness here. We're doing virtual public involvement for the first time on a STIP. We're very excited about this website. Again, as I mentioned, we had some really tremendous help from our web team to get this into a really user-friendly and easy to understand process of how to bring their public's thoughts forward. This interactive map is really, really exciting. For the first time, it's a visualization. You can zoom in to take a look in your area to see the termini and where these projects are throughout the state. You can see there's little colored dots throughout the state there. We are also doing social media ads. Facebook, Twitter has that video that I mentioned. I wish I could show it here today. It just doesn't come across virtually, but I will show you the website for you to go take a look at by communications. That's going out on social media. We've got paid radio advertisements, 60-second spots targeting rural areas that directs listeners to our website and informs them they can go into the district offices to see in person if they would like to. I think I heard from one of our board members that they've heard at least one of the ads on the radio, so that's pretty exciting, getting the public involved in their own transportation improvements. And then those display boards, as I mentioned, at the district offices enable folks to see it in person if they'd like, so it's a multi-pronged approach. On the website, just want to, since can't do it really interactively here, virtually over the video conference, encourage you to go to the website. I'll show you the web address here in a moment. There's a drop-down box. You can pick by county. You can look for projects by work type, and you can also just zoom in on the map and click on it. It'll give you details about the project. So there's the website, STIP outreach through March 31st. Again, love to have the face of GDOT, Natalie Dell, there with her great smile, inviting the public to comment for us. Comment period closes March 31st, and we'll be bringing to the board here at our next board meeting approvals for that, and looking also for the governor's approval as well, and then we'll submit it to USDOT for their review and final approval. And that concludes my report. If there's any questions.
Any questions? That was an exciting report, so thank you. Very positive.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Janine. We'll call up Andrew Heath now with some safety report, I think.
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. My name is Andrew Heath. I'm the State Traffic Engineer for Georgia DOT out of our Office of Traffic Operations. Just have a quick presentation for you this morning. As you can see, the title is Achieving Safety Through Innovation and Technology, but what I'm specifically going to be talking about is an update of our connected vehicle program and talking about that as to how we've transitioned from a programmatic deployment perspective into now developing specific applications through the technology, focusing on both safety and mobility. So I've got a number of use cases to show you as to how this technology is becoming reality and providing those types of benefits across the state. So the impetus for this presentation actually comes directly from our accountability and investment report, as you can see there on the left of your screen. And one of the first pages in that report shows the vision and mission of the Georgia Department of Transportation and our strategic goals that we work towards. And very specifically, the fourth strategic goal is put Georgian safety first through innovation and technology. So I want to speak directly towards how this program is helping the department work towards that strategic goal. So first, though, our challenge. This data that you see on the screen before you is the latest fatality data that we have from calendar year 2020, and it's not a great story. On the top table at the bottom, you can see the grand total of fatalities comparing 2019 to 2020. And you can see that we had an increase of 217 fatalities within Georgia last year as compared to year 2019. And that's a year when we are facing the COVID-19 pandemic and traffic volumes were actually down across the state. That's a 14% increase in fatalities when you're comparing those 2 years. I've also highlighted that we saw significant increases on both county roads and city streets. So this is not just an on-system GDOT issue, but this is also an issue that we're seeing off-system on local facilities as well. On the bottom table, that provides a little more breakdown, a little more specificity in the fatality information. And I highlighted the bottom 3 rows just to kind of show you where we saw significant increases in 2020 versus 2019, specifically roadway departure crashes, lane departure crashes, and again, drivers not wearing seatbelts, very basic things. When you look at the roadway departure and lane departure crashes, those alone account for the bulk of the increase in the fatalities. And very important to note is about 50% of those crashes that resulted in those fatalities were single vehicle crashes. So it was a driver leaving either their lane of travel or leaving the roadway entirely and hitting some sort of fixed object and ultimately resulting in the loss of their life. So this is a tremendous challenge, and it continues to be a challenge for Georgia DOT. This is actually the highest number of fatalities we've seen since before 2010. So it's obviously very concerning for us. On the right there on the screen, you can see that quote. That's some national quote from the National Safety Council that looked at national level fatality data. And the problem that GDOT is facing, we are not alone. This phenomenon is also occurring in all 50 states across the country, where we actually topped 42,000 fatalities in the U.S. last year, which was an increase of almost 8,000 fatalities from the year before. So obviously moving very much in the wrong direction. What we can say is that this data is very indicative of poor driver behavior, very indicative of prevalent speeding on the roadways leading to these crashes. So that's what we've got to try to work to bring those numbers down, obviously, and to try to push better driver behavior throughout the state and throughout the country. But getting into what we are doing about it from a technology perspective, this is just a transition slide to show you that the technology that folks have been envisioning for a number of years, and the picture on your left there is an image from 1956 depicting a car driving itself, a future that folks have been looking towards for a long time, is now beginning to become reality. That we are seeing these technologies actually be developed and actually be deployed on our roadway network. And specifically with on the connected vehicle side, again, vehicles talking to infrastructure for the betterment of mobility and safety, GDOT has now been underway with our program for about 5 years. In 2017, we started in response to an AASHTO challenge to deploy this technology at a limited number of intersections. So we started small, and we did a pilot project of 54 intersections where we deployed this technology. Specifically, we put radios on the side of the road to communicate to vehicles. And we got underway, and it went very well for us. It went live in June of 2018. And a few years ago, we actually took some of you on a tour out in the field here on Ponce de Leon Avenue to experience the technology firsthand and see how we were talking directly to the traffic signal. Again, that went really well, so we expanded the reach of the technology to incorporate it across the Metro Atlanta region, not just from a pilot perspective, but from a regional deployment perspective, where we targeted 1,600 major intersections in Metro Atlanta to deploy that technology, and we embarked on that mission back in 2018. In 2019, we were again being very successful and it attracted the focus of US DOT and the Federal Highway Administration. They liked what we were doing, and they awarded us a $2.5 million grant to continue to deploy this technology across the region. So that allowed us to accelerate our plans, accelerate our deployment. And then just last year, we embarked on a secondary regional deployment in partnership with the Atlanta Regional Commission, and specifically targeting and working with local governments to deploy this technology at their traffic signals that they maintain. So again, moving from the on system, the GDOT network, to the local network to get this technology there to start to realize some of these benefits on their system as well. And then here in 2021, again, we attracted the attention of US DOT and Federal Highway, and we're very fortunate to win a $3.2 million grant, secondary grant, focusing on specific applications for emergency responders and the safety of emergency responders as they respond to incidents on the interstate network. And I'll get into some of those details with these specific use cases. So you can see the GDOT Connected Vehicle program has continued to grow and continued to march forward, and we're very excited about getting now into specific applications and specific benefits for the traveling public. So just from a programmatic view, here's what we're doing in the Metro Atlanta region. You can see on the map on the right, I've got some lines highlighted and then some stars on top of that. The lines indicate the 1,600 traffic signals that we are deploying this technology on in Metro Atlanta through the program that began back in 2018. And you can see some of the arterials that we're targeting through the program. Again, some of the major arterials in the Metro Atlanta region. The stars indicate that secondary regional program through the Atlanta Regional Commission and the participating local governments that have signed on to that program. So for the first program, we are now live with 654 signals that are operating this technology. And through the secondary program, we have identified over 700 locations already through the local governments you can see on your screen. And again, these are regional deployments. These are not pilot programs. It's a deliberate interagency deployment to create a baseline level of connectivity to enable this technology, move towards connected vehicles broadly, and bring safety and mobility benefits to citizens in the area. So now getting into some specifics, focusing again on safety and mobility and what this technology can provide. So the first one I have here for you is a transit signal priority pilot with CERTA and GDOT Express, targeting their least reliable and most challenging route from a GDOT Express perspective in serving their customers. And that is Route 431 that you can see that moves through the midtown and downtown areas. That's a number of signals that those buses have to go through, leading to challenges in progressing through the area. And so we wanted to see how could this technology help that system from a safety and mobility perspective. So we installed the connected vehicle technology at all of those icons you can see on the map there, and we are broadcasting information from the infrastructure directly to the buses that are running that route. And what we were able to do then is empower those buses with what we call transit signal priority. So what that does is if the bus falls behind schedule, the bus will actually request priority to the traffic signal and influence how the traffic signal operates to get a green light, to get back on schedule. That does two things. One, it increases the reliability of the system from an on-time perspective, so that when customers expect the bus to be there, the bus shows up then. And two, it reduces conflicts for the bus as it progresses through the intersection because they're given that green light, right? So this system actually went live on Monday. It is now operational, which we're very excited about. The radios that are required to be on the buses are on the buses. Our radios on the side of the road are on the side of the road. They are operating and communicating to one another. So we've now stood up the system, and we are now in the tweaking phase to see how's it working, are any changes required, and what are we learning? Are we seeing the reliability benefits that we want to see? Are we seeing the safety benefits that we want to see? So again, a very specific application focused on safety and mobility, specifically with this one for transit service in the region. So a great example of what connected vehicle technology can do. A little bit different flavor, this is actually moving down to Savannah and Garden City Terminal. How can connected vehicle technology help empower freight movement across the state of Georgia? So this is a similar style application, looking at priority again, but focusing that technology to freight providers and participating movers of goods and freight in the area. We have deployed this technology on the major ingress and egress routes from the ports. That's Jimmy DeLoach, State Route 307, and State Route 21. Those radios are installed and down in the field in Savannah. And we have actually lined up our first freight provider, TCW, which is a regional provider in the Southeast United States. And they are installing these radios that are necessary on the truck side in their vehicles as we speak. So we will also be running freight priority. So again, the trucks communicating to the signals to grant that green light for the trucks to help improve their efficiency from a mobility perspective, but also to help their safety perspective as well as they progress through these intersections. A secondary application that we're going to run is very similar to what the commissioner talked about in Millen, but we will be doing it through this technology down here at the ports to communicate to trucks for at-grade rail crossings being blocked due to trains moving through the area, and inform those trucks ahead of time with active rerouting that this particular crossing may be blocked. You might want to go another way to get in and out of the port facility. So a great example of how connected vehicle technology is moving into the freight realm and empowering the movement of goods across the state. And finally, getting into the grant that we just recently won, the $3.2 million grant. This one's very important to myself, particularly because we are going to be installing this technology on all of our Hero operator vehicles to help them from a safety and mobility perspective. And what we are going to be doing is enabling emergency vehicle preemption using the technology to help them turn around more quickly and more safely at interchanges as they respond to an incident on the interstate. All right, so if they have to get to the other side of the road, a Hero vehicle enabled with this technology will automatically be given a green light, and the technology will enable the clearing of the intersection so that it is a clear intersection to allow them to turn around very quickly and head in the opposite direction and avoid that situation that you all have seen with emergency vehicles where they're very hesitantly trying to move through an intersection, having to hit their horn a lot, make sure drivers aren't doing something inappropriate or getting in their way. This will ensure that that doesn't happen and that they arrive at a clear intersection to turn around quickly. So we'll be deploying this specifically right here outside of the GO at the North Avenue Interchange as our first pilot location. The technology will clear the intersection here to enable a hero to exit the connector and come back on Spring Street to head back northbound, hitting green lights all the way. The technology will also push alerts through a cell phone application to notify pedestrians in the area that an emergency vehicle may be arriving. And it'll also communicate with the folks assisting in egress from this building that an emergency vehicle may be arriving and you should move out of the vehicle or out of the roadway to allow it to pass. So we're targeting our hero vehicles, but we have also lined up a partnership with Metro Atlanta Ambulance Service, which serves 100% of the emergency drop-offs for Emory Midtown Hospital here. Those ambulances will also be equipped with this technology so that as they are arriving in emergency mode for an emergency drop-off, they will get a green light all the way from the downtown connector to the emergency drop-off here at Emory Midtown Hospital to expedite the arrival of those patients that need to get there as quickly as possible. We are just now getting underway through a partnership with the Federal Highway Administration for this grant as we speak, and we're excited about embarking on this program here in the coming years and realizing, again, the benefits that this technology can provide. So finally, this is not necessarily safety related here, but I did want to speak quickly about what GDOT is doing to expedite the getting this technology into the hands of partners across the state and across the country, frankly. And we have done that by developing what we call an open data portal, where we are pushing the connected vehicle data that our traffic signals are generating through a centralized location to enable any third party that wants to receive that information to get it. All they have to do is subscribe to our data feed that the IT department has set up for us. So this is going to allow us to proliferate the impact of the connected vehicle data very quickly and move above and beyond just specific use cases. This data portal is now up and running, so anybody can subscribe to it if they want to take down our connected vehicle data and use it for an application to their benefit. As you see, we currently have 5 partners subscribed. The types of folks we're working with, you can see some there. Google is pushing this data into their map application to help assist in their routing so that when you are using Google Maps to route from point A to point B, they are using some of GDOT's data, some of our signal data, to help optimize that routing. Or Audi is pushing this directly into their vehicles, right? And it's going to enable their direct interface with the driver in communicating what our traffic signals are doing. This is all happening in the cloud and happening over the cell LTE network is how this is working. But again, this is going to broadly proliferate the impact of our connected vehicle data, our connected vehicle system to third parties that might want to utilize it. And as you can see in that last bullet, we are enabling this for all signals on the GDOT network. So this is moving beyond 50 or 1,500 or an additional 1,000. This is all 10,000 signals in the state of Georgia that could be enabled through this data portal. So we're very excited about the potential for what this is going to offer up for us. So that concludes my remarks for this morning. Last thing I just want to say is you can see the logo there, SIGOPS powered by GDOT. Just major kudos to Scott Higley and his communications team that came up with this logo. The SIGOPS program is what we have created in traffic operations that encompasses the connected vehicle program, encompasses some of the active management activities that we do on the signal system across the region and across the state. And they've done a great job for us in branding that entire effort into one umbrella concept that we call SIGOPS, that's derived from signal operations. So just really excited for it. The staff at TMC and traffic operations, when they saw that powered by GDOT, they just thought that was so cool. It just reminded them of some of the big tech companies and all that. So they were just really excited about the work they did. So that concludes my remarks, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Jerry Sharon. I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Andrew, thank you for the report. It's really very interesting. I actually have two questions, and I'll just ask them and let you answer them. How do we collaborate with our adjoining states, the Floridas and the Alabamas and Tennessees, North Carolina, et cetera? Are they where we are on the same kind of technology? And my second question is, where do you think this is going to lead when it gets to vehicle communication? How far out is that from where we are today?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Sharon. Those are great questions. I think to your first point, not all of our neighboring states are where we are. I think that we are in a leading position. Florida is doing some great work down there. Tennessee is just beginning to get into the technology, but when you look to Alabama, South Carolina, they are further behind. Our best avenue that we have in communicating and knowledge sharing and providing best practices, lesson learned to help push them towards this technology is through our various AASHTO partnerships, through our ITS America partnerships. John Hibbert, our Director of Operations, is in a national leading role in those various organizations and helps communicate what Georgia is doing, how we can help assist the other states in moving their connected vehicle programs forward, and again, help deploy and enable this technology broadly, because I think your point is absolutely right. It's one thing for Georgia to be sort of on the leading edge with this technology, but we want our peer states, neighboring states to do the same so that the benefits don't just end as you leave the borders of Georgia. I think from a vehicle-to-vehicle perspective, what we're seeing now in connected vehicle technology really is actually the public sector side sort of leading the way on getting the technology out there. You can look to states like us here in Georgia, Florida, Michigan, enabling its infrastructure. And what we need now are the major car manufacturers, OEMs, to bring this technology forward in their vehicles, right? We are ready as a state to enable V2V technology right now. Our infrastructure is deployed, it's operating, it's working. We can get them the information they need. What we need is the radios in the vehicles so that they can then talk to one another. The concept works, the technology works, we just need it to be deployed. A number of OEMs, the car manufacturers, have announced plans to do so in the coming years. Some have announced them as soon as 2022, 2023, so relatively near term. But that's sort of the piece that we're waiting on as to see what the exact plans for the car manufacturers are going to be. But again, we're ready for that to happen.
Any other questions or comments? This is simply amazing. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. Andrew was being very humble, and I don't want to sound too boastful, but I would say that Georgia is certainly leading in this area. We do have some good peer states, other states like Utah, Florida, and only a few others that are in this space. And I certainly acknowledge John as John Hibbert, as Andrew did, but also Andrew and his team, a great team of folks that I like to call the Skunk Works. I don't think they like that, but I call it the Skunk Works, because these things we're doing don't fit any form of traditional transportation. And as he talked about the 5 partners we have of working with Google and Volvo and others, this is a very interesting space at a very interesting time. But what we want to be is Georgia well positioned again to lead, and this whole conversation goes back to safety. We believe there's these investments that we're making, comparatively speaking, are not that expensive, but provide a huge opportunity for safety benefit. And so Andrew and John and their team are always focused on the safety part of that. But I can tell you, I have the privilege of serving on a national scan, if you will, on connected and autonomous vehicles. And the things that we're doing here basically inform the driver now. But the technology in the vehicles are such that it's really not hard that the vehicle starts responding to this information and data, not the driver. So if the signal's telling the vehicle you're going too fast and the signal's changing and you can't get through the intersection on yellow safely, not meaning accelerating, but safely, the vehicle then will take over and decelerate and come to a stop and not run a red light for that purpose. The other thing that, again, Andrew mentioned, the technology that if you're standing on the street or you're walking in a crosswalk the technology is such that it's not far away, that the car and the cell phone and the person in the car walk, not only vehicle to vehicle, but it could be vehicle to person, that, you know, the vehicle will recognize that, uh-oh, there's something in my way. So this technology is moving very quickly. The OEMs or the car manufacturers are all involved in some degree of the main cars we'll be buying. And of course, you've got a lot of companies like Tesla, Waymo, and others that are truly working on autonomous vehicles totally, where you don't have to drive at all. And that technology is very close as well. And so I'm just super proud of the work that they do. They do lead nationally. They are respected nationally. And they're working in areas that we've never worked in, building relationships with different organizations that are non-traditional transportation. So hats off to the team, and hopefully that didn't sound like bragging too much, but we should all be very proud of the work they do, because at the end of the day, it does go back to safety. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments or questions? I'll just say this is simply amazing, and I hope this information is getting out to the public and to the lawmakers so that they can see how high-tech that you and your team are. And I like the logo too, so.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, is there any new business? Any new business? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move. So move.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.